So you created a violent and disturbing world in which terrible things happen over and over to children, and yet children continue to read and love your books. Why do you think that is?
Children's literature certainly is nothing but a history of despair. I mean, the early folk tales, which we still are still among the first things we give to children, are stories of confusion and violence and reflect a world that makes no sense whatsoever. And so in that, I'm proud that the Snicket books take their place in a long parade of terrifying and miserable things happening. But I also think, I can't think of a story that's interesting to me that doesn't have at least the threat of something terrible happening. And so, if someone says, something happened to me on an airplane, what you want is lightning or something in that story. For me, what makes an interesting story is when something terrible is about to happen. I think that's interesting.
I think perhaps despite Mr. Snicket's best efforts, there's something valuable and edifying about the Snicket books that kids can take away from it, which is perhaps like a model of how to endure terrible events over and over again. And I wonder if after terrible events in the world, I actually read this online, it might have been
must be true.
Conjecture, perhaps, that after terrible events in the world, Snicket book sales uptick slightly. So sort of therapy, perhaps.
We would have to have a period where terrible things weren't happening to test that theory, and I don't think we've come across that yet. I'm
sure there's an algorithm somewhere.
Well, I receive an enormous amount of letters from children, and a surprising number of them are children who have lost more than one parent. An audience that I thought would perhaps not appreciate these books, and in fact appreciates them very much. So I can understand that a little bit, because it is the story, as anyone knows who's had a death of someone close to them, and I hadn't when I began these books, but I have since, and the feeling of, on one hand it's okay, and on the other hand it will never be okay. Mm-hmm. That you are constantly missing this person, and yet it doesn't mean that you won't find something delicious or funny, or that you won't have joy in your life, or that you still have responsibility to do things. This is something that was shown to me at a young age, because my father left Germany in a hurry in 1939. You'll never guess why. And some of my father's family had the foresight to leave and escape Nazis, and some of them didn't. And so some of them lived and some of them died, and the story of their survival and loss was was a series of unfortunate events, was random. It was not a sense that some of them behaved well or were smarter or were braver or any of that is in tedious children's books. There was only the sense that catastrophe can strike you at any time. And I think children who have lost parents also have that sense. They have a very keen sense that it didn't happen because of something that they did or that someone else did. They may have that anxiety, but they really have a sense of that you can come home one day and have the worst news. Right, I believe that red light means we're all out of time.
No.
Is that right?
Can that be verified?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I was enjoying this.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm sorry, particularly for the people who were in line. Thank you.